Welcome to Accounting in Focus.
Hi, this is Jeff Ingram, and I'm here today bringing another WordPress for Blogger videos. And I'm getting ready to start a series on plugins. Now, I've seen a lot of information being given out, and to the casual developer, it could be confusing on whether you should make changes in code. Is it better to put it in your theme, or is it better to put it in your plugin? Or you can actually go in and custom edit pages as well too. I'm not going to really show you how to do that here today. However, it's really a false question. There's really it's where you want it. Plugins by themselves are not going to be any slower than making changes to a theme. Now, you might decide that you want it to happen on the client side or on the server side, and if you don't know the difference, that's probably not too important. The more important thing really is to be able to make sure your page loads quickly. There are resources out there, and I'm going to show you one real quick called Page Insights. This is a thing developed by Google, and it helps make pages faster. So if you have a website, like I'm going to type in, or I'm just going to cheat and come over here and grab Accounting in Focus, throw it in there. Really haven't done much there, so speed-wise it should be okay. But you'll notice it actually will bring up some mobile and desktop issues for the site. One says you should enable compression. These are the types of activities, especially the should fix ones, are the types of activities that you can do to make your page load faster. The higher these numbers up here, the faster your page loads. And if you want an idea of comparison, well, pick a more famous site. So we will go to yahoo.com. And I have not analyzed this one before. And you'll notice, actually, desktop-wise, it's pretty good. Mobile, it has some issues. This is eliminate rendering blocking JavaScript and CSS above the fold content. Say hello to Boo Kitten. What that literally means is what you see on the screen. And the reason they tell you to do that is things that are loading above the screen can slow down the page load. However, sometimes you can't necessarily get rid of stuff if you need certain functionality to place. But it's something you should always try and do if possible. And actually, they get the same issue on desktop. 85, I believe it's 80 is where you get this sort of green checkbox. And that means your page loads fast. And if this loads, it really doesn't matter if you use plugins or themes to do it. However, there are some things that you have to keep in mind when looking for plugins, and we'll talk about those. So back here in Accounting in Focus, we're going to go over to this section called Plugins. And I did show you quickly before I added in the social media counters. I'm going to go ahead and delete that. I suggest if you're not going to use a plugin, keep it off your site. No reason to waste your server space on a plugin that you're not using. And later on, you might get confused on what plugin you're using. So if you're not using them, get rid of them. If you might use them in the future, add them in. But really, before your site goes live, I usually clean out this area, make sure I only have what I'm using. So now you notice there are three areas: add new, editor, and installed plugins. Installed plugins will let you filter between plugins that are active, inactive, or all your plugins. I usually look at all. However, at the end, I'll come into inactive to get rid of the inactive ones, and it should not show at that point. You can also access add new plugins up here. Now, you could actually make some changes sometimes to the back end of your code, as I was saying, if you go to appearances, there's this thing called editor. An editor will allow you guys should come in here and make a change to your comments page. And sometimes people will cut and paste changes, or they'll cut and paste code into their themes at this level, where that's possible. And I wouldn't necessarily say wrong. The thing you have to keep in mind is whenever you update your theme, let's say a new security enhancement comes out and your theme gets updated, well, you will lose, or at least you used to, and I assume that's still true, you will lose changes made here. When you install it, you just have to make sure to go back in and install it. Creates a bit of a maintenance headache. However, sometimes that's what you have to do. It's definitely easier to do it here than to make a plugin on your own if you can't find one to do the functionality. But today we're going to talk about plugins and how to add them. So you'll see these tags, much like on your website, and the larger the tag, the more areas that there are plugins for. Google has a lot, Sidebar has a lot, Plugins has a lot. Kind of ironic that they're all not called plugins, but YouTube has some, Login has a few, Comment has one, Comments has more. But it's a tag, just like the website, to help you search for stuff. If you have an idea of a functionality you're looking for, then this would be the place to come. But you can modify essentially the behavior of your website by adding plugins. So today I'm going to add in a plugin to change the look and feel of the site a little bit. And I'm going to try and pick one that I know I'm going to use, but it's pretty quick to go through. So let's go Sitemap. And I'm going to search. Now, sitemaps are used by web bots to process through your website. And there's a specific one that I usually use. So let's refine my search to see if I can find that one. I believe it's called XML Sitemap. And there's a few things you want to look for when you're choosing a plugin. So this is the one I typically use right here, I believe. XML Sitemap and Google News Feeds. But you want to look at rating first off. If it's a newer one that might not have a rating, or so blank doesn't necessarily mean it never gets that everyone says it's bad. It probably means that everyone says, or no one's rated it yet, and it's probably newer on the scene. But that's not the only thing I look at. So let's come here. There's this important button for each potential plugin called Details. And in Details, it will give you a generic synopsis under the description of what the plugin does. It will give you installation instructions. Most of them from here are essentially you just install it and then it goes into your plugin screen. However, you can also upload plugins as well. Screenshots. This is kind of useful. It'll just show you what it'll look like. For a sitemap one, it's not going to be pretty. It's not something that is really meant for humans. It's meant for search bots to find information on your page a little bit easier. Changelog will tell you what they've been working on and fixing. FAQ are just basic questions that the developers of it probably get a lot. And Other Notes. Other Notes are, well, whatever they want to put there. Now, there's a few other important things I look at besides the average rating. One very important thing is last updated. If that is a long time ago, it probably means that the WordPress site or the WordPress plugin is no longer being supported by anyone. And this could happen for a number of reasons. One, sometimes functionality actually gets picked up by WordPress and is added into the functionality. Like years ago, probably at this point, if you wanted to get rid of comments off of posts or pages, it was very difficult. And you'd have to get a plugin, or you have to go in and edit your single page template to remove comments to make sure people couldn't do them. However, they added a lot of functionality to give you more control, makes it more of a what we call a content management system more than just a blocking system now. And if you don't want comments, you can actually turn them off relatively easy now. However, so it could actually be part of here, and adding this would be redundant. And WordPress is always updating and changing. That's the beautiful thing with the web. And as long as you keep your website updated, that's good. However, you have to realize adding plugins that are really old, the plugin might not work anymore, or even worse, you could break your website. And there will be a video on how to fix a plugin that breaks your website later on. However, I'm going to say, okay, this one looks pretty good. XML Sitemap and Google Newsfeed. Let's just add now, or install now. We're going to come over here and activate this plugin. And that is how easy it is to add in most, all the good plugins, all the plugins I use. That's pretty much all there is. Now, there might be a thing with it called settings. Sometimes it actually will add a new menu option in your admin panel or somewhere else in your website. It depends on what the plugin does. If there's settings, you want to go over to your settings and then you have to set them. Whoops. So this one actually adds it right into general settings, it looks like. I kind of don't like that. I like it when it breaks it up. A lot of times if it adds it into settings, it will create its own area. This one does not do that. However, it'll let you make choices of what to include. And there might be certain things you don't want to include. Let's say you have pages, but they're not something that you think are important enough to search. Well, you can uncheck pages. Or if for whatever reason you want to make it hard to go through posts, you can uncheck post. Included taxonomies. I'm sorry, I just messed up that word. Categories and tags. I would include those if I was you. Essentially, categories are typically used a bit more for organizational purposes on a website, and tags are often used for search purposes. You definitely would want to include stuff that you want people to find searches on. Include custom URLs. I'm not going to do that. However, it does it. Additional allowed domains. That's if I would assume you're using you're using one WordPress installation over multiple domains. You could add it in and have it all taken care of through one. I'm pretty much just going to leave the default settings here. If you're doing a new site, however, this might be a useful one to know. And this also, you'll notice, adds in actual, who do you want to submit this to? Ping-O-Matic, Bing, and Yahoo. The first two you probably definitely want to keep. Actually, I'm not familiar. I'm going to do some research on Ping-O-Matic. But you might or might not want to publish your sitemap to certain search engines. You could actually try and discourage them from using it, but I believe that's a normal setting. I think we're back up to the normal. That's the problem when they share settings on the same page. So once you're done updating your settings, you just save your settings and you let the plugin do its work from that point on. Voila. That is the basics of settings. Once again, if it's functionality to change your website, don't be concerned with adding a plugin. Now, individual plugins might not be very good, and when you add it, it might really seem to slow down your website. Well, actually test out the speed of your website. If that doesn't work, simply deactivate the plugin. Another good thing to go through are the reviews of plugins. And you can see there if it leaves a lot of garbage behind and messes up your WordPress installation. I would typically try and avoid those if possible. However, sometimes you have to do what you need to do for your site. Just because it's in a plugin does not make it slower. It just makes it architecture for a website. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you share, comment, subscribe to this channel. And if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. I would appreciate it. And for the people who are getting this, for you people who are tempting the waters of blogging. I hope you find this useful, and I hope you continue to blog on. Have a wonderful day.